Really love the opening shot of Silence of the Lambs. It shows Clarice, a single FBI agent in training, running up this long hill, struggling up this long hill. You think that she's not going to make it, and she really has to climb up this rope towards the end. You see that she's on her own on this long journey, something that's strenuous, something that's hard for her to do, and she's by herself. And that's, for this thing, I think it's pretty neat. You see George, even though he's not the lead character, you see him by himself. A lot of foreshadowing in the opening of the pool and how this whole thing starts. I mean, the working title for this thing is Ripple Effect. So he's found in the water, and that is going to create this ripple effect through the lead characters when we see them the next morning. And really love the feel of the fog over the water, the early morning, the cold, and something happening that just wasn't supposed to happen. All right, so this is episode 1 of this web series. This is 12 pages. Well, it's 11 and an eighth. So I've just written down here the first set of shots on page 1. This is a flashback scene. It starts off with a flashback. Not really sure it should be called a flashback. That just starts off that. So it's kind of starting off with a pre-scene, a setup, exposition for the film. And this particular thing is happening on a pool side of a big school pool, sort of an Olympic size with diving boards and such. And it's a meeting scene in the dark. Lots of fog rising up over the water. So this is a shot list that I have set here. This is this initial ideas for the visuals that I can see for this scene. Now the next page goes on to a whole new scene, opening in the morning at golden hour when the water polo players are setting up, showing up to the pool to set up for practice. And they find a body here. So we've got to get from opening scene where there's a meeting, you see one guy, you don't see the other. There's a struggle, he dies, or you think he dies, he falls over, hits his head on the pole of the diving board. We've got to get from there to the next morning. So I'm really big on the opening shot here. In the opening shot, I really want to establish the foreshadowing of the water, because ultimately these boys find this body floating in the water. So I wanted to foreshadow the water and the fog coming off of the water early morning. It's supposed to be cold, so we want that, that sort of tone to open it up with. So what I want is a telescoping master from far away, so we can see this and not make out the second figure, but see George, the character here, he's holding a phone with evidence on it. So I want to see from way off in the distance just a shadowy figure meeting with George. So what I have here is the opener of the deep fog pool level, just to establish whether that's a dollar or not. We'll decide on the morning of. I want to cut away to the gate closing, and then I want to see ground level feet walking in after that gate, looking for whoever he's looking for. I'm going to foreshadow Drew's shoes is who he's meeting, but we're not going to see his shoes until later on. I'll set up another shot of Drew's shoes later on in the episode so we can put together, perhaps, it might not even be in this episode, it might be in another episode later on down the line, that we match the shoes. And that's a subconscious thing. I don't think anybody's really going to remember what the shoes look like, but it could definitely be something that's useful. Didn't think you'd actually show up. I'm going to stay on the water for that first shot and hear that voiceover, because I really love the visual of the steam coming off that fog, coming off that water, and to hear him and sort of in the distance. So we get that sort of clandestine feel that they're hiding, sort of hiding in plain sight, really. This meeting is between two people at this specific location for a reason. George reaches in his pocket, so I've on George's pocket, lift up to see you for this line. So I want to see him pull out the cell phone, lift up to his face, where we first see it when he says, "I know what you did." You have it on video. So the first line we actually see George is this line here. And then on this beat, we're back on the water for foreshadowing the water for when he's going to be found in the water. Head and shoulder on George. Finally, we see this traditional head and shoulder shot on George here. Profile medium, extreme left frame. So I want to put him all the way on the left side of frame and leave some of the background just open to see. So we don't want to see the guy who's talking to. We don't want to see Drew is his name, the character. We don't want to see him. It's a secret to be revealed later on down the line. So that's why I put him on the extreme left. Across this arm swings into hand, reaches into frame, so Drew's hand tries to grab the phone, but we don't see that. We don't see him. And George, I would like to see this in and out of the water. So you can't quite make out Drew, but you can make out that George is in there from probably about 20, 30 feet away. Then the hand thrusts forward again, gripping George's wrist, medium, past Drew's arm on George's phone. And then to see you on George's face reacting to, hey, wait a minute. And then for this whole shadow struggle, we're going to reach back into the old school and show this action happening off camera. What I want to do is I want to test a 1K or larger high up on a stand, shooting down at the two of them to get the shadow of the struggle. It's got to be sharp, of the shadow on the ground, so we don't actually have to see this struggle, because then if we got too much clarity in the video, we would actually be able to make out Drew, and we don't want to do that right now. So I want to show this struggle action with that high shadow down onto the ground. Cutaway of George head hitting the pole. Now that's when they struggle. He drops back, hits the pole. Then I'm going to have his hand hitting the ground, a nice see of that with a phone in it. Back to George's head with blood pooling under it. So we definitely see that George has been massively injured, probably critically, with some sort of thrust. And we'll probably have his head hit the pole in slow-mo, speed it up in post. Hand reaches and grabs the phone. Finish back on the pool, water and fog, fade in to the title and credits and the music. So this is opening scene. This is how I put down initial visuals. Now this will probably change when I get back to the when we get to the set. It might change just a little bit. And obviously I'm going to go down there with my DP. We'll look at it. We'll see if it structurally makes sense, if it's reasonable, and then we'll write out a clarity list on the shot list, so that we can have, for coverage sake, we'll have our script suit make sure that we're on the right track. We'll number these shots, get them in the right order, and then we'll move on to the next scene. So this will really help us get the visuals down and know that we're covering it the way we want to cover it. But I see that as being an interesting, neat way to open it up. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get this thing rocking and rolling, and to go through the rest of this episode and build the shot list for it and really see the visuals one shot at a time. If you imagine yourself looking at a screen and just filling in what you want to see from next shot to the next shot and the next shot, how's it feed it? And then you can get some overall coverage of a master just to cut away on it, and as many cutaways as you can get. Hands doing this, phone looking there, pulling this out, gate shutting, anything you possibly can, feet walking, so it just helps you to cut away from shots that save you in post. It's really helpful. Excited to do this. I'm excited to bring you guys with me. So if you want to follow this journey with me and with our team making this web series, subscribe if you haven't already. Follow along with us. Like this video if you're into filmmaking and you want to see more about this web series being developed. And I'll start posting some of these behind the scenes stuff of when we're shooting, how we're shooting, what we're using, the process of it, and take you all on the journey of this particular web series.